Welcome back, everybody. It is another episode of Important Work. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with my guest. And can I call you a friend, Jason?
Absolutely, of course. We have shared Salt and Straw ice cream together in Portland, Oregon.
Yes,
that makes us friends for sure.
My wife still remembers having ice cream. I said, I'm interviewing Jason today, and she's like, oh, we had ice cream together.
Ice cream. I know, it's memorable ice cream.
It is memorable ice cream. Well, this is Jason Van Orden, and for all of you listening, here's what you need to know from my perspective. Jason is the one who taught me how to do podcasting. This goes way back. And I remember, I've told this story before, Jason, on previous podcasts I've had, but I remember listening to, at the time, a handful of podcasters who had good charting podcasts, and they had a similar format. I'm like, these guys are learning from someone.
Right.
Because I need to find the source. And so sure enough, somehow I dug through Pat Flynn's stuff and found that you were at the source of teaching Pat Flynn podcasting. And I reached out to you and you taught me how to do podcasting like 5-6 years ago. It was a long time ago in the world of podcasting.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are to talk about you and your new podcast and all the work that you're now taking on. So, I mean, give us the background of like, what are you working on now?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to talk about thought leadership today, but
yeah.
What are you working on now?
Yeah. So here's what I want to say about what I do. I help important ideas, people with important ideas to reach those people and problems that they can help most. The internet's totally changed the game. I'm sure you've talked about this on your show before. And it's just amazing that, you know, as I look back over 15 years of helping people with online branding and marketing and all these things, it's that capacity for somebody to come up, you know, with their story, their expertise, their message, and, you know, people out there can find the exact solution they need and the exact person who's best for them to hear it from, you know, that they can really resonate with. And so in doing that now, I'm really passionate about helping people. That sounds so cliche. I'm so passionate about, but anyway, I'm really into helping people magnify their unique genius, their idea, their message, their story, their expertise. And that means the messaging and positioning around it so they can stand out in the marketplace. That means the platform, you know, the content and other ways that they're actually going to have those ideas heard and seen and received to get the attention that they're looking for. And then in the product too, it's like, how do you package that stuff up and make money from it in interesting in ways that aren't dependent on your time and energy all the time. So positioning, platform, and product to help people get their ideas out there in a bigger way and make money doing it at the same time.
It's really good. You mentioned the cliche thing. I think what's cool about you though is you are able to bring specificity to the ideas of things. When I think of you, I think of someone who puts time and effort into delivering something that has real value and meat to it, which goes way beyond and way deeper than a cliche. You know, so
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's part of your brand. Like if I think about like Jason as a brand, that's just what I've come to expect from you.
Yeah. Well, that's good feedback. It's always nice to hear. It's like, how do I come, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about branding a bit today and positioning. So it's like, it's always nice to actually hear that. It's like, how would people, what comes to mind when they think of you? Right.
Right. Yeah. And that takes work. I think sometimes, everybody has to find their own way into the work. For me, like I'm not a detail guy. So the amount of detail you put into things, I'm like, oh man, like I just get exhausted thinking about how you do it. Cause I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I'm more of like let's just crank out a lot of volume.
Yeah.
And, but that you put time and effort into what you do is really valuable. So,
well, just to underscore that for the listeners, it's about knowing what you're good at, maybe what you're not, doubling down on where your strengths are at, and then consistently showing up in that way. And eventually people start seeing it. It's like, oh yeah, so-and-so is about, you know, Jason's about specificity and, you know, confident clarity and frameworks and so it's like,
Yeah, totally. Well, so in this day, I read a stat the other day, maybe it was like from a year ago, but it was like there are 800,000 podcasts out in the world. So if you just think about content, you know, as a thought leader, trying to stand out as a thought leader becomes really hard in a sea of everybody has a podcast. Like it's the new thing, you know, like let's have a podcast. So how do we as emerging thought leaders stand out?
Yeah, it's a great question. And because if anything has changed in my time on the internet, and you know, you've been on the internet a while too, is that it's getting noisier and noisier, right? The good news is there are still, I mean, look, 8 billion people on the face of this planet, and you only need that one fraction of them that want to hear it from you, you know, that are going to resonate most with you. So that brings me to what I want to say is that it's not enough just to, you know, create something valuable and relevant. You know, relevance would get you a long way 10 years ago, meaning as long as you're targeting a pain that people have or a problem they want solved, a challenge, a goal, an unfulfilled need, they might go, oh, this looks interesting. I'll check it out. Yeah. Now our, brain spam filters have been tuned up more. And so you got to add another R on, which is resonance. So relevance and resonance. And resonance is about likability. Resonance is about, you showing up, like we just said, you showing up in the ways that you show up best consistently. But I want to talk about specifically, just so lay the foundation there, relevance and resonance comes in with that. So what does that mean? Resonance. Well, that's where I want to get into these three things that help you stand out as a thought leader. So the first one, and this is a big piece of that resonance, is I was looking recently at some interesting research. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of research done into purpose-based business. And so just to give people an idea what I mean by that, we're not talking businesses like Patagonia, right? Who like really stand for something. They sell outdoor gear and clothing and stuff, but like they're about sustainable future and their business strategy and decisions they make and their marketing and everything. And that's what they're about. Or, Whole Foods, there's a certain identity there. There's a certain thing that they're about. And we could name others as well. And so the question is, like, does this actually translate to anything when it comes to impact, income, and other things that people want to know about their business? And the answer is absolutely yes. The research, shows like 79% of people are likely to be more loyal and do repeat business or share your message. It's like you are going to have stronger customers by having this purpose-based messaging. So what does that mean? And this is item number one for standing out, is to really infuse your message, everything about your business and your brand, about what you are about in terms of your purpose. And of course, people might be thinking, oh, Jason, yeah, great, purpose. Yeah, that's why I do what I do. I got a purpose, right? Make money and also help people out. That's my purpose. That's great. But let's go a little deeper and layer underneath in the layers here. Like, what is actually going to make a clear and compelling message to consumers so they go, I want to do business with this person. So that's where I came up with something called the magnetic messaging framework. And I only have time to touch on it briefly, but this is about talking about things like, what do you believe? What is it that you believe that is foundational to what you do? And what is it that you believe that maybe is counter to what most of your industry believes? And what do you believe that you want the people that you are trying to reach, what do you want them to believe once they've encountered your message or done business with you? At the foundation, right? So I'll just share briefly an example with me is that, well, I believe that the world needs more of these voices, these, rising expert thought leader voices, because the internet allows it. We've got a lot of problems to solve. And the more I can help people reach the people and problems they can help most, the better off we're going to be. So that's a belief that I have. Along with that is, well, what is your reason why? And this is going to sound but this is what I mean, a specific thing. I'm not being redundant here, but your reason why is, for you, why do you do what you do other than money or your freedom or your immediate benefit to you? Nothing wrong with that. Those are great things. You should get paid for what you do, right? But people want to know that you're in it for something else. This is the fact of the matter. Over the last 10 or 12 years, they're tired of corporations just like pillaging everything and lying and I'm not being like anti-capitalist here, but this is like people are fed up with the BS. They want to know that there's something real there. So I'll give you an example for me. Reason why? Well, I'm an intensely curious person. One reason why I love working with thought leaders is because on a daily basis, I encounter interesting ideas. And that novelty is very energizing for me. And I like talking about how that energizes me. Yes, I love making the money I make, but that energizes me. Or also for me, by helping other thought leaders who then can go help 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, it compounds my own impact and legacy, if you will. So those are reasons why for me that go deeper than money. I'll just give one more example here, and that is vision of the future. There's actually 5 different elements, but I've just touched on 3 for time. Vision, and that is, okay, well, what future are you trying to create in the world and for the people that you serve? So I am trying to create a world where there are more of these voices that are seen and heard, that are seen as relevant and resonant and reach the people that they can help more. And that I think more than big organizations and big media and stuff, if we have a groundswell of these people on the internet that can share their story and their expertise, we're going to have a big impact. So that gives you some stuff around purpose-based messaging, which is number one way to stand out as a thought leader.
Yeah. I love that. When I think about important work, right? Like there's this conversation or this container called important work versus, which is counter to like not important work. To me, what I believe is important work is work that makes the world better than we found it, right? It leaves the world better than we found it. And I also believe that everybody has important work that's bubbling up in their soul. And I think actually there's an awakening of consciousness where more and more people are starting to tap into. It's not about a transaction of money. It's about what can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
And the more that these voices, like you said, rise and start to resonate together, like it's like a one person singing versus a big chorus. When we're all singing in melody, a harmony, whatever, with one another, what happens is it goes further.
Yeah.
And I think that makes the world better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
our kids are better and our politics are better. Like everything gets better when the important work rises, you know?
I agree. 100%. Yeah. That's a great belief. I love that right there.
Yeah. There you go. Like, see, we are implementing people. This show is about implementation.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first thing. What's this? You were 3.
Yeah. Okay. So the second thing is to have a signature method. So what do I mean by that? Well, you serve a certain audience, and hopefully you know that audience well and are very specific about who they are and what they're struggling with and what they've tried and why they haven't reached what they want to reach and all those good things, right? Market research. But then, you know, when it comes to the outcome, the results that you help deliver for them, again, whether you're a coach or consultant or freelancer or professional server or whatever, you have a process that you take people through. And whether you've really thought about it and formalized it or not, you have a process. You know that there are certain stumbling blocks to help them through. You know, maybe that you need to do some kind of assessment up front to figure out exactly where they're at. There are certain questions to answer. There are knowledge gaps to fill. There are milestones that you lead them through. And that is your particular way of helping people to reach the goal. And that, you know, I refer to that as a signature method. Now, does it have to be like 100% original? Absolutely not. I mean, I get ideas all the time from people that I look up to. You know, I read books and I credit those things, but I put them together in a way then with my perspective, and I add to them my own ideas and frameworks and way of organizing it. Yeah. And the reason why this is so important, because if you can, you know, come out and say, this is my method, and you name that method. Right. So, you know, I'll take just a very simple example here. Would be like Covey's quadrants. Actually, that was actually Eisenhower, wasn't it? That he got those from, right? But 7 habits. So Covey's got his 7 habits, right? Yeah. That's a signature thing that actually, you know, launched a whole brand. Right. You've got Mel Robbins, who's out there talking about the 5-second rule, right? Like that's her thing, and she's got all of this stuff now around that and what it means and how to implement it and why it's important. And, you know, so when you've got your thing, and it's not like, you know, it's based on research that she's found and her own intuition or whatever, right? But when you've got that thing and you put it out in the world in a way, and maybe you're packaging that as your consulting package, maybe you're packaging it as an online course, maybe you're talking about it in keynotes or you write a book, but this is your own flavor of going about that. And it just immediately, you know, it gives you credibility, because it's like, oh, they've thought it through. They've got this thing, thought it through. And so it earns trust. But then also this is, you know, your way of doing it. Nobody else can copy. And now you formalized it, given a name and putting it out there as such in the world. So that's the second way that I encourage people to stand out as a thought leader, is to formalize that process for themselves.
I love that. You're friends with Todd Henry. Are you friends with Todd Henry?
Yeah. In fact, I just did an interview with him like 2 hours ago.
No way.
Yeah, for his show. Yeah.
Well, I had him on one of my previous shows several years ago, and he had just come out with Louder Than Words, which I love that book. And one of the, you know, he talks about that whole, like, if you think of a tree trunk, like in the beginning, if you go way back in history, like there were some people saying some things, some thought leaders saying things. And as you go up the tree, there's some branches that start to branch out, and we start to go out on these branches. And the further out you go, the more you start to find your own voice off the branches that you followed. Like, there is no original thought necessarily. It's like, it's all in the ether. But at some point you go far enough out on the branch to where you start to add your own, like you said, your own perspective or views that you're bringing to work that, you know, standing on the shoulders of giants. Like we're standing on work that has gone before us. Yeah. Well, we get to add our own spin to it.
Yeah. And when you add that resonance of the purpose-based stuff, and you're talking about your beliefs and vision, and then you add in your signature method, you know, now you're going to have people like, I like this person. Like, I like their approach. I like what they're about. This is who I want to learn from. Right. And it no longer becomes like, you know, price shopping you versus somewhere else. Like, they just want to learn from you. Yeah. They just want to work with you.
Yeah, totally. Okay. That's number 2. What's number 3?
So number 3 is you just, and this one's going to sound a little bit vanilla, but you need to consistently put content out there. So I was talking to
Yeah. So
But
good.
for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah.
It's not just as simple as like, yeah, you got to be blogging or podcasting or whatever. But I was just talking to somebody, actually a client a couple of days ago, who was struggling with this whole content thing. Like, I'm not ready. I still don't know exactly what my brand's about, what my position is, what my idea is, my thing that I'm putting out there. And I shared with her the story of one of my friends, Dory Clark, who's written 3 excellent books now,
Yeah.
very well respected marketing and branding and leadership consultant, gets paid a lot of money to speak and such. But 10 years ago, like, she was just starting out with her brand, but she knew she really wanted to write a book. She's like, well, that'll help me start establishing, like, people will actually maybe know who I am. She pitched a book, couldn't get anybody interested, pitched another one, couldn't get anybody interested, pitched another one, couldn't get anybody interested. In the meantime, she was blogging and consistently putting content out there. And then it turns out that one day she threw an idea out there on, a pretty well-known online publication. And that one just got a lot of traction. For whatever reason, it got a lot of traction. It was about her story of reinventing herself from like a journalist to a political campaign advisor to then, an author, like all these things that she was going through, which was her first book, Reinventing You. So that got traction. Suddenly publishers are calling her saying, hey, we want you to write a book about it. So point being is, sometimes we don't know what our the hook or the big idea or the thing that's going to like really grab people in and go like, wow, okay, cool. I don't know. Simon Sinek, when we've seen his TED talk, it was like a TEDx talk, right? It wasn't even that well lit. And it's like kind of a grainy video.
Yeah.
And he draws those 3 circles on a padded thing.
Right.
And it freaking launched his whole like career, because for whatever reason, those 3 circles really resonated with people, and bam, he had his thing. So you got to show up with your ideas consistently, which means setting aside time to create and ideate. So that's kind of really what I'm getting at this third thing. If you want to stand out as a thought leader, you need to consistently have time to ideate, which means you're looking around, you're reading stuff, you're taking stuff in, you're looking outside of your industry for interesting stuff, you're talking to people, you're keeping fresh fuel up here for your creativity, and then you're creating with that stuff. You're taking it and mashing it together and adding to it or subtracting or saying, I don't agree with that, and you're creating blog posts or you're creating books or whatever you're creating. Create an idea consistently, and you're going to have enough of those ideas that finally start landing. And then the things you might least expect are the ones that will suddenly launch your career, get you the book deal, get you the keynote speech, get you the whatever it might be, right? So that's the third thing that I want to put out there is for standing out as a thought leader.
It is, in my first program that people come through when they want to work on marketing stuff is like, it's called the Groundswell method. And it's all about 6 weeks of you posting daily. Why? Because
good. Yeah, nice.
I mean, like I say truth comes out in iteration. Like, do something today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Pretty soon what happens is you start getting clear about your truth.
Yeah.
If you do one post,
your voice, which goes back to Todd Henry's book, Louder Than Words.
Right.
You do that through the implementation of like showing up.
If you do one post a year, there's no way one post a year gives you access to your own truth. But if you do 365 posts a year, you're going to have way more perspective about what jives, what resonates with you. And if it resonates with you, it has a higher chance of resonating with them. So I love that one, because I've seen so many people who don't post enough content because they're waiting for a promise of engagement before they do the post. They're like, well, I don't know. Is this going to give me engagement? I'm like, that's not the right question.
Yeah.
You don't do the content to get the engagement. You do the content because it's what's inside you to say.
Right.
And just like you said with Dory, then, at some point you're going to say something, and maybe that's you just don't know, but maybe that's the thing that actually gets somebody's attention and you don't know.
Let me say something about that engagement too, because I have let that hold me back at times. I mean, definitely, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't, is it going to get comments? Is it going to get likes? Is anybody even going to see it? Why am I, wait, I get it. Like, it can be tough when you don't know that, like, but I have a mastermind with about 10 people in it. It's a mastermind for thought leaders. And when I was promoting it earlier this year, I was sending out emails to my email list, but then I was also putting some posts on Facebook and such. And at one point I was like, is anybody even seeing this stuff? Because sometimes I'll mention it and I change it up how I mention it in different ways to see what, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, the last one hardly got any comments. Like, why am I going to post one more time to Facebook about my mastermind? But I did. And this particular day that I'm thinking of, it didn't actually get a whole lot of comments or likes. And who knows? Like the algorithms, who knows what's, sometimes it just whatever. But someone reached out to me through Messenger and immediately said, I think I need to be in your mastermind.
Wow.
And got on the phone with them, and they signed up. And not only did they sign up, they called their buddy and said, you need to sign up for this thing. And that brought somebody else into it as well. Right. Wow. Yeah. Had I not done that, and I even asked them, like, how did you know about this? Like, I don't know, I've kind of been following your stuff on and off, and for whatever reason, I logged onto Facebook that day and saw your post. So here I am. Good, yeah. And had I just given into that voice of like, well, is it going to get any engagement? Like two people that wouldn't have been in my mastermind, right?
Right. So. Yeah, right. That's so, I love that. So good. So good. Well, I mean, like you said, this is just scratching the surface. You have more that goes into this. And this is just even one of the conversations you're having in the world. You've got all sorts of other stuff from income streams, branding, all sorts of stuff. But, and I could talk to you forever because I just love where you come from as it relates to business. We have a good time
chatting. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of alignment too, I think, between how you see things and how I see things. That's why
totally. Absolutely.
That's why I like you. But I mean, if people want to explore further with your content, your perspective, the programs, masterminds, all the stuff that you offer, where can they go to dig deeper?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So if this has been resonant and relevant to you today, I would recommend a couple of things. First of all, you can go to my website, jasonvanorden.com, either sign up for my newsletter or go to the nav and click on podcast, whichever of those fits you better. And you'll be able to follow my ideas through either of those channels. If you want to go deeper into some of that purpose-based messaging stuff, I've got a framework, a worksheet. It helps walk you through it and really dig that stuff up. Go to magneticmessaging.download, and it's a little mini site about that you get. So, and get your hands on an actual little mini workbook that'll walk you right through it. So magneticmessaging.download. That's an actual URL you can type in, and that'll take you over to more about that.
Awesome. Really cool. Thank you so much for connecting and sharing. I love when you share, and I love where you come from, like I said. So thank you for passing that on, and all the best to you, Jason.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.